show. People coming in at this first part section. Dr. Young talked about why we build these exercises and what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is create a more efficient athlete. Based on the athletes that we work with and treat, we come up with these exercises. And Dr. Young shared with you. Me and my kids found out where he took dance classes, and we went over them. We watched him through the window, and especially there, he's outstanding.
Sun's against the window, so
the exercises that we created here, we come up with these exercises. Kind of the learning process is this: we come up with the exercises. Sean knows I'm a little OCD, and I'll do them until I hurt myself, which I did. And I'll do them wrong until I hurt myself, and then we go back and we rewind and learn how to teach them through me getting hurt. So everything I'm going to talk about here has been tried, and I failed at just because I do too many of them and I don't monitor myself. So now I'm going to teach you how to do them. So here's how the progression goes. This is the beginning of it.
just a minute. For those of you who are working, why are you new here? Okay, so for those of you who are new, this is building on the first half. You may want to check with us after the lecture because this is like the starting point and it's not the starting point. Okay?
We're going to do this one because we're all sitting here. And the first and most important part for all these exercises is to keep a neutral spine. And the reason why that is once your spine comes out of that neutral position, you could lose, simply, some glute recruitment. Think about it. If you're sitting there, I want you to go ahead and hunch over a little bit. Now you can even put your weight on your hands, and I want you to try and squeeze your butt. Can anyone get a really good contraction? Or is it kind of mashed potatoes? All right, nobody's answering my question. So I'll move on. I'll pretend like it's all mashed potatoes because that's how it should be. Now I want you to get to a perfectly straight position. Perfect position, like your mom always told you to sit up at the table. And here's the important part. It's the upper back part that's important as well, because you'll see people who are really good through here, and then they'll kind of lose their head, and they'll lose their upper back, and then you're not going to get that contraction again. So get to a perfectly good position. Sit perfectly, shoulders back, chest open, collarbones open, like someone's got you by your hair, pulling you up by your hair, and now squeeze your butt. How many people got a better contraction in a better position? Very good. You're all normal. The rest of you, background's hard. So from that perfectly neutral position, what we're going to do is we're going to lift. It's almost kind of like a march, a seated march.
This is an abdominal exercise and nothing more. If you're not feeling your abdominals, you're really wrong. So it's obviously not going to see a lot of motion here. This is an abdominal exercise setting you up to get into your glutes.
Yeah, that's a good point because people ask, well, what do you guys do for core? I don't see you guys doing sit-ups or anything like that. Well, if you're doing sit-ups and crunches, what you're creating is really strong neck flexors. And you're trying to move too much, and I don't want my kids to look like this when they run. All right? I want them to have a neutral spine, nice tall, ribs down, sewed together, almost. So these are our ab exercises. This is our core work. Planks are great, but you see too many people with strange spine postures when they're doing planks. The kids get tired and they start to sink down a little bit, and they get twisted and crazy, and you're back to that position where you're training stuff that's not any good. So these exercises are our core exercises. I know a lot of people love that term. What are your core exercises? What do you keep core? Core is everything. It is. These are them. People who've been out to my house and haven't been there recently, this is my basement now. I train people on the side, and I used to have a gym in my garage, which didn't work really well in January or February. We had a house fire. I got a new house, and this is my new basement. I even made it long enough so I can run starts down in the basement, which worked out pretty well. A lot of people think I'm crazy. Did I wreck my basement? But it's my house. many people had hip flexor problems with their track team? Usually about beginning of March. Why is that? Well, we have shut down our abdominals to initiate that movement, and we use hip flexors and we run them to death, and then that hip flexor gets tight, tender, pull, whatever you want to call it, injured. So this is where we start with. We want to make sure that we get nice, strong lower abdominals to initiate that movement to bring the leg through, and you just march. So everyone put your notes down just so you can see how it works. You need to sit on the edge of your chair. You sit back and do that thing, you'll never get to your floor.
I think my legs are going to allow me to do this one. Could be wrong.
No Frankenstein arms, not there yet.
This is flat. I do not want that. But now I'm squeezing with my butt. I'm going to use my hip flexor. Think about this. This is where we're taking Chris and having him lean all the way over and that his hands are on the ground. What is he in? See, that's the starting block. So the first movement should be driving through the abdominal, not through your hip flexor. Hip flexor is a perpetuator of swing. It has no purpose being in the drive phase. This is why you get short hip flexors and a lot of hip flexors.
So in that position where you're completely neutral, go ahead and start lifting. And see if you can get to your lower ab. You should feel it right down in here. No arms, no Frankenstein arms if they're coming. Right? Don't look at that, that's wrong. Start with your arms down, we're going to progress to that. My fault. And just march.
Push the foot on the ground into the ground to help you find the abdominal to lift the other leg. Make the stance leg work.
So what would happen is that glute will help the lower ab contract. They'll work together. They'll pair with each other. And that's what you want.
90% of the patients that come into my office, high level, NCAA, professional sports, do this wrong. So if you think this is easy, you might be not doing it wrong. You want to get a flat surface, and I have to do how many. So it is skill. Here.
Now, second progression is, I call them Frankenstein arms. You bring your arms up. I know you guys want to jump to that right away because that was on the screen. But go ahead and try that. You're going to feel more abdominal recruitment because you're challenging that plane. I'm not very good at my plane, so I'm not going to say what you can do.
So think about this. What have you done? You started to raise the rib cage. Can you imagine if you raise your hands up all the way over, the rib cage is coming up, right? You're disengaging the rib cage, you're disengaging the abdominals because the rib cage is lifted. So you now have to hold down harder with the abdominals. That's why this is the first stage. If they can't do it here, you're having to do it with hands by the side. This rib cage came up a little bit, pull the ribs down that are flaring. Okay, if that gets easy, then you have to go here, pull the ribs down that are flaring, don't go into a crunch, keep them neutral. That's where it gets hard.
And you can tell people who've got too much flexor going on, meaning there's flexor and extensor, and you could be flexor dominant. And so you'll put them in this position, and they immediately go to this. They jut their jaw out. You've got to make sure that it's nice and neutral and tall here. You may have to work into that a little bit and teach them just some upper back posture practicing. You know, I tell my kids, you get bored with class, just work on your postures. And then you'll wake up right away. Play a little bit further. I have a twist on my right side. Then you do, I call it, make your arms like the French. Get it, surrender. Sorry.
So this pelvis did not change. The belt line shouldn't change. Okay, you're still sitting on those sit bones. You're shaped veracity bones. There's no tipping. Okay, if you tip automatically, there's reflexes. This Chris was talking about. There's inherent neurologic reflexes that work against you. When you tip your head down, you tend to let go of your upper abdominal when you go to here. That's why sit-ups tend to pull these apart. That's why pregnant ladies get reference diastasis, where the vertical abdominal gets separated. Okay, that's why you see it in a high-level athletes who do way too many sit-ups for way too many years. The reflexive flexor drops you into here, so you've got to keep your eyes on the horizon. You've got to keep your rib cage here and keep this activated. If you drop it through here, your pelvis is going to go in that hip flex. Like you said, you did it perfectly.
And I hate to say this, I I'm a football guy. I mean, I had a long career in football, coached football for a long time, and I love the bench press too, but you want to know an exercise that puts you into that bad position and you get really strong in that position? Bench press. Think about it. You lay these kids down on their back and they pick up that bar. Immediately they go to a round and shoulder position. You get really strong in here. But what does that do for your running? Well, it gets you here. This isn't very good.
And you tend to flare the rib cage, that huge arch where the rib cage is flared, pull the rib cage down. Then all of a sudden it becomes harder.
How many people here are track football guys? Here's a great alternative. Dumbbells, have them scoot down to the edge of the bench so just their upper back is on the bench, and then they stand up, hips come up, now your chest is open. There's no way you can round your back because you're kind of neutral through your back or through your hips, and then go ahead and do your presses. That will help open up your chest and keep you from being here. These guys can't do much. They're great on the board. I'm on 1,000 million pound club, look at that, but I really can't move very well because my arms are stopping me from doing that.
Speed comes from the extensors. Ankle, glute, shoulder, okay? And so if you're training flexors, you're actually just putting your power into it. That's why the first thing that's important coming out of blocks is to lift the head, because that activates the higher spinal extensor muscles. If they're coming out of the blocks and keeping the head flexed, they're going to stay in that flexed body. One. Yeah.
All right, here comes the monster walks. I'll play it on the video and then I'll take you through it. Now, I use a stick because it's a good indicator, it's a good teaching tool to let people know if their spine is out or not. And the stick has to be long enough to go from your tailbone to the top of your head or the base of your skull.
This looks familiar to the first position we did last session, right? The shift, hip, shift, lift, height, and drive. Now we're going to make it hard.
So now you're actually going to walk.
2-inch steps.
I'll go over here again.
And you're using that height, like last time, you're using the height to step forward. Height to step forward. Just like the stairs that we did last time.
So here's how I hurt myself. Great new exercise, lots of fun, it gives you something new to do. 44, I'm sick of working out and doing the same exercises all the time, so I'm always looking for something different to do. So I get up at 4 in the morning, I go down to my basement, and I do these until I get hurt. And here's how I got hurt. I got my stick, I thought my stick was a great idea just because I had a stick. It's fun to have a stick. I get in my position, I went back, and what happens is I went back too far, and then when I went to lift, I shifted from recruiting from my hip and ab, which should be paired together, into grabbing with my lower back. And 2 days later, I'm at Sean's house on his day off, begging him for treatment. And I brought my kids to wreck his stuff, so he gave me treatment later. That's how I get free treatment. So what you want to do, the key is this. You only go back far enough. You go to the very point where you start to feel the stretch in your hamstring, and then you come forward about 1 inch, so you don't feel it in your hamstring anymore. You don't feel the stretch. You need to earn the stretch. You need to earn the distance back. As you get stronger over time, you'll get to go pretty far back.